Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Microsoft 365 Business Boost Show with Nick DeCourcy, and I'm Therman Trotman. We welcome you back for those who are returning. Listen, so today what we're going to be talking about are three topics: training options for your employees. So how we taking care of training, what's your training strategy, stuff like that. We're going to be talking about the end of publisher. Sad face for one of Microsoft's longest running tools, and the value of Microsoft 365 for our frontline employees. What does that look like? Those are our topics today. Can't wait to get into it. Nick, so I want to talk about training options. I've supported a lot of organizations where they did not have their training options under control, or just their training strategy, period. It's usually like, most definitely, you have to take industry specific training to check some boxes that they said you have to check. That's fine. We can't get rid of that. You'll constantly have to do that forever, probably for the rest of your career. However, there's other training that some employees might find valuable on their own, or a specific industry might find it valuable. And I personally think that there's a lot of training to be had just for the basics. Mm-hmm. You'll answer an application, and that it might say a requirement is to be proficient in certain tools, basic Microsoft tools. And you get through that and you say that you're proficient, but really, you're not. And there's nobody checking you to see if you're proficient. So I think that training needs an overhaul, but specifically for Microsoft 365, there should be more training that's required just for the basics: PowerPoint, Excel, Word, Outlook, because there's so many things you can do with those tools that not a lot of people know about. What are your thoughts on training, and specifically training on Microsoft 365 products?
Well, yeah, I think you're right, Therman, that we don't necessarily in all situations check that people have the abilities that they talk about on their resume or during the application process. I think it's quite rare for organizations to do some kind of like inbox exercise where they actually sit someone down in front of a computer and test that they know how to use Excel, or they are competent in organizing emails in Outlook, or whatever it might be that you're trying to get people to do. And I think in some ways that's a shame, because I think that we simply assume that people know how to use different tools, and they don't necessarily, and that can cause inefficiencies within a business. But it could also cause stress for the employee as well. If you're put in a situation where your idea of being an expert on Excel is very different to the organization that you joined, their idea of being an expert on Excel, that can be very stressful as well. So I think you're right that there's this need for a baseline knowledge. And in the same way that in areas like construction, for example, you're not going to find your way onto a construction site using heavy machinery unless you have the right credentials to do that. That's very important. That's a safety issue. Well, with Microsoft 365, the safety issue isn't the same, but there is a safety issue. It's your reputation. It's your business's data. Like these different things things can go wrong. There are issues there that can come out of not knowing how to use those tools effectively. The biggest one is going to be a productivity suck, though. And I think that's something that we should address. Although in the age of co-pilots, potentially you could argue that this is not going to be so relevant in the years to come as it has been in the years gone by.
Yeah, maybe when you talk about Copilot, but even Copilot, I was at a offsite for my client earlier this week, and it was all about what we're doing now, what we're going to plan to do in the future. No big talk about AI. And I had to say, in our final remarks, I had to say something like, you need to make AI part of your training. Like there was a portion of the discussion that was about training, and I said, AI needs to be part of your training. I said the same way that finances are important because it touches every single thing that we do. It doesn't matter what department you work in. Finances are important because you're going to get paid. You need to get paid. Mm-hmm. Finances touches everything. I said AI also needs to be, AI is going to influence us that way. It's just like finance. It will touch every single area. And it shouldn't be part of your training. It should lead your training.
And it probably already is. I mean, that's the thing that everyone needs to get to grips with, I think, Therman, that whether you have an AI strategy within your business or whether you don't, AI is probably already touching your business, whether it's from the applications that people are sending in when they're trying to get a job with you, and what is the impact of AI in that process. People thinking about, like, what tooling does this company have when they're joining, but also shadow IT. Are there people in your business, if you've not given them the tools that are going to make their life easiest in doing their job, are they just going out and finding those tools? And that can really be the riskiest thing. So ensuring that someone isn't just loading up the latest thing that they've seen on YouTube or LinkedIn, and they're understanding things like risk, ethics, privacy, these different issues that really come into the fore with AI is incredibly important. And you could, I think, quite rightly say this is something that maybe sits on a level of importance above those base skills, because as time goes on, we are just going to be able to say to Word, hey, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? And you're going to be able to do that. It's not there 100% today, but I think 6 months, it'll be closer. A year, 2 years, it'll probably be here to the greatest extent of what most people are trying to do with those apps every day.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be moving very, very, very fast. And it's important, I think, to know the tool and then also know AI, because I'm a SharePoint guy. Me knowing SharePoint and using general AI or Copilot is way more effective than someone who doesn't know SharePoint and uses AI for SharePoint needs. So before we get to that place where you could just talk to Word or talk to Excel and do whatever, there's value in understanding that tool, getting a basic understanding of that tool. You don't have to go deep. You're not about to be the next Excel expert. That's fine. But you should understand the basics of the tool, the power of the tool, and probably alongside with AI. So that when the time comes, yes, I don't think people grasp the power of AI. It's almost like right now you get like, I'm going to get in front of Word. Oh, but I'm going to hop out of Word if you don't have Copilot. I'm going to hop out of Word, go to my AI tool, do some things, and I'm going to come back to Word. That's all fine and separate and text-based. Whatever. That's what we're dealing with now. In a year, in 2 years, maybe 5 years, who knows? It's not going to be like that. That's not going to be the process. It's going to be something way more advanced and way more powerful.
Oh yeah, it's going to be intuitive. It's going to be intuitive, understanding what you're doing. And yeah, I think you said an important thing there, Therman, of your expertise on SharePoint paired with the ability of AI to increase your productivity is really, really key to this. And I think there's no better way to understand the limitations of AI right now than to ask AI to explain to you how to do something that you know how to do really well. Like, take something that you know really well that's pretty complicated and ask AI to explain it to you. And it's at that point that you start to see the cracks of you need that human expertise alongside the AI. The problem that we've got in a lot of places right now is that people aren't necessarily using AI to help them with processes that they understand really well. They're using it to help them to understand processes they don't know too well, and they're not even seeing the issues that are coming up. So that idea of human supervision coming from human expertise is incredibly important. I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. I mean, even the people who have the most experience, who have the most responsibility, who are paid the most in any business, still have some kind of supervisory reporting structure they go into. Like CEOs who make millions of dollars a year still report into a board. The idea that AI is just going to do its thing without any supervision is nonsense. That's not going to happen anytime soon. And we're still going to need humans who understand the basics to do that supervision.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I agree with your strategy there. Talk to AI about something that you know a lot about, even if it's not complicated. Talk to AI about, I don't know, if you're into celebrities or something, and see if it gets it right. So Nick, moving on from training, I want to talk about the end of Microsoft Publisher. So Publisher is finished, or coming up here. It's about to be finished.
2026, I think, Therman. So we've got a little bit of time. If you want to spend some time in Publisher between then and now, you're more than welcome. If you've got some desktop publishing needs.
It might take 2 years and go deep in Publisher on its way out the door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all about, whatever you want to do is your world. But talk to me about what this means, you know what I mean, as far as like the end of Publisher specifically, but then also the end of any tool that Microsoft might retire, like what that looks like inside of a business and that type of stuff.
Yeah, I doubt there are that many people that are actively using Publisher every day. I do have one client that I work with who insists on still doing some of their marketing stuff in Publisher, and will occasionally send me a Publisher file where there's a problem with something or to reference something. And at that point, I think the last time I had to download Publisher because I didn't even have it installed on my computer anymore. So yeah, it's one of those things that. As time goes on, people have stopped using it. But back when I was in high school, it was all the rage. Like if you wanted to create a document in the 1990s, this idea of you had a word processor that was just for typing, and then if you needed anything that was kind of graphically rich, you went over to this kind of desktop publishing convention, and that was your publisher. That was all the rage at that point. So from my point of view, like this isn't one of these kind of spring up and disappear within a couple of years apps that Microsoft does have from time to time. This is something that's been there since I think a year or two into Office being a thing, like being packaged as a suite of tools from Microsoft. So it's interesting they're going down that road, although I think that now probably not many people are using it. It does lead to the question, though, of, I think one of the big pieces of baggage for Microsoft is this idea of supporting lots of legacy. There's all this legacy out there of like Word documents, Excel documents, different technologies that we use. And this could be a huge baggage, a huge weight to a company like Microsoft competing with startups that don't have any of that baggage at all. If you look at something like Google Workspace has been cloud first, collaboration first. Microsoft has been playing catch up on that with Microsoft 365. I think at this point it's got there pretty much, and in some ways is exceeding Google's product, but it took some time to get there. So I do think it's interesting to see this transition, and what will this look like? Is this going to mark the start of some sea changes for Microsoft 365 and what it looks like in the Copilot age or the Loop age versus what we've seen in years gone by with going out and buying an Office Suite CD from Staples?
Yeah. So your point about Microsoft catching up with Google and in some ways exceeding it. So Microsoft's strategy, part of their strategy, let me not say that, part of their strategy is to see what others are doing and then do it. In other words, copy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like we've seen that happen. But outside of the copying, Microsoft's strategy also their strategies are supported by resources. They have tons and tons and tons of resources. And that allows them to play a different game. You know what I'm saying? So while Google came out and forced Microsoft's hand, basically, because they said, we copy. We're going to copy Word. We're going to copy Excel and something else. Did they have slides at first? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think they had a PowerPoint equivalent in there as well.
Okay, and then they put it on the web and they said, hey, it's all free. Go use it. That is crazy. You know what I'm saying? That's really that's a crazy strategy from, this little small company at the time, Google, going up against something like Microsoft. So with Microsoft now, to your comment, catching up and eventually, I don't really think that I want to say competing. They still are competing, but they caught up and they're doing well. I think that Microsoft has that it's almost like having a bunch of lawyers versus a company that doesn't have a bunch of lawyers. You're going to lose because all they have to do is throw all their lawyers at you type thing. Microsoft, all they have to do is, with their tons and tons of resources, is stay the course and go deep with whatever it is that they have to do. They can win that battle almost all the time. It's just that when you have, we were talking about this before we turned the cameras on, that whole, you're really good and you're starting up, but nobody knows about you. You don't have Microsoft's market share. You just don't. You know what I'm saying? And the types of clients that Microsoft has, that's hard to get in there too, like the government. Microsoft has the government. So for you to now come in and be, let's say like ServiceNow and try to get your way into the government, you can do it. But again, you're still competing with Microsoft. So as far as like hanging up tools, the original question, I don't like, I'm in this world and I still don't like that process of being able to hang a tool up. It's like the process of going into a store and buying something that I have, that I own, it's now on me on whether or not I want to hang that thing up for forever. Like that's just how it's going to be. When we deal with cloud services, you hang it up. You, the provider, you can hang it up. And I just got to eat that. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's the way of the world. I know it's the way things work. It just doesn't sit right with me ever since it's been that way. You know what I mean? So for instance, I still like InfoPath. I actually love InfoPath. I thought it was a good tool. It had some quirks that was really.
We've talked about InfoPath before. I think we were both fans of InfoPath in the day.
Yeah. But they're on their way out the door too.
Yeah.
Fine. But I have clients who, for whatever reason, I know not for what they have their reasons, they don't want to get off of InfoPath just yet. They have to hang on for various reasons. Fine. The thing is that we don't want our clients leaning on legacy. However, they can make their own decisions. It's their choice. But it really is out of your hands once you move to the cloud. So InfoPath is a desktop application, and you can still use it on the desktop, so you're good. But the next tool that we are using is Power Apps. If 15 years from now, Microsoft says, nah, no more Power Apps, we're retiring this thing in 7 years, you can't do anything about that. You know what I mean? You don't have the ability to fight back. And that's just the way it is. So I mean, I wasn't big on Publisher, but I'm big on SharePoint. Now SharePoint does not look like it's going anywhere, but if it was, that'll suck, because it's like, you're taking the power away from me, taking the power away from the businesses, giving it to the providers, and they say we're pulling it away.
Well, yeah, I think the point you're making is a solid one, Therman, but I think we should think about this in relation to the maturity cycle of IT versus what we see in the physical world. Like, for example, say you run a restaurant and you are involved in licensing for food service. There will be things that change over time about like the rules and regulations of food service for safety purposes that mean that you need to upgrade some of your practices. Sometimes you need to upgrade equipment. And if you don't go about that, if you don't create a kitchen or food storage space that is going to pass your inspection when that inspection happens based on those new criteria, then you're going to lose your license. Absolutely. And I think the difference between the IT world now and the IT world of the 2010s or the 2000s or the 1990s is that now we see everything through this lens of safety issues, safety and security. And if you insist on continuing to use a piece of software that is outdated, that is no longer updated, then over time, it's going to become less and less safe. Because it isn't being patched when there are issues found. I know that there was the issue a few months ago where Microsoft announced that they were going to start, I think, throttling the ability of unpatched Exchange servers, on-site Exchange servers.
Really?
To I think send email to through Microsoft 365 if they were hybrid instances.
Now, I didn't even know they could do that.
I don't think anyone knew they could do this, but they announced that they were going to start doing this. And don't quote me on this. This is outside of my area of expertise. I am not an exchange. I'm not an exchange admin, and I don't claim to be a security expert. But the point is that Microsoft has to do something. Like, there are people out there that are running their software in a state that makes all of us less safe. And I think
Microsoft the weakest link.
Yeah, exactly. Microsoft has to do something about that. In this case, they've talked about publisher. They've said, we're giving you 2 years. 2 years to find a piece of software that's going to do what you need is more than enough. 2 years to take your templates, if you're still using this, and moving them into a different piece of software, that's more than enough time. I mean, it's going to require work, but 2 years, there are companies out there that say one day, I think there was a company called Skiff. Did you see this in the last couple of weeks? They were bought out by Notion. They provided email facilities to people, and I think they gave people maybe a month or 90 days to find a different email provider. One day they were just like, we've been bought, we're no longer going to be providing email.
That's literally what I'm talking about. So maybe Microsoft does it, they give you the 2 year runway, like you're saying. But that is what I'm talking about. That's crazy.
Microsoft doesn't do that. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, Microsoft does not do that.
Yeah,
Microsoft gives you a run-up. They take feedback from their customers. Like if customers say, hang on a minute, this is going to cause a big... No, not customers like you and me, but customers that have 100,000 seats. If they say, hey, this is a problem, they do listen to that. So... there are benefits. There are maybe downsides. There are a lot of people who get pretty highly strung about this issue of, well, you should be working with these third parties, these smaller companies versus Microsoft. But there are benefits to working with Microsoft. They gave us 2 years on a piece of software that probably no one uses.
Yeah, good point. Resources. That's why we're talking about resources. Microsoft has the resources to even support it for those 2 years. But or to keep to support it for 2 years. But my thing was situations like that where you just talked about with Skiff. That is scary. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like I'm a big believer in you can't make your fire my fire. So if you like to run around putting out fires every day, and now you have something that's due almost the last minute, and you come running to me saying, hey, this is something that needs to be done real quick. Can I get your help? Can I get your help? If I can help, fine. But if I have the ability to be like, no, this is your fire and you're trying to make it my fire. So when you give me 90 days to get off of your platform and rework everything I'm doing, it's like everything that I'm working on that's important, you have made your fire my fire. Totally unfair.
Exactly. And just to say, for those who are going to get angry, there may be comments on this. It may not be 90 days, but it was a short period of time. Like I don't have the article in front of me.
Oh, you mean people who might
people might be like, it wasn't 90 days, it was 95 days.
Yeah. If you're one of those people, you can save your comment.
No, we get those comments. So, if you want to comment that, then just comment that because you help with our engagement, But, just for those people, it may not be 90 days. I'll put a link, if I can remember, down in the description for what it actually is,
Yeah. So let's talk about frontline employees. Now, inside of an organization, you got different sets of people. And normally, there's a normal setup. You were talking about construction earlier, where the construction company can have a headquarters where a lot of people sit at desks and work on computers, laptops, whatever. And then there's other people who are out in the field, so to speak, and they are like frontline workers. So they do like the physical work usually, where the person at headquarters is doing like more digital stuff. So a lot of these folks, they still need to be in contact with the same information that the folks at the headquarters has a hold of. And it needs to be easy, or else we know how it is. A frontline worker is going to be like, get that away from me. I don't want to do it. You're slowing down progress. This is annoying, blah, blah, blah. So we got to make it easy for them. I want to talk about frontline employees and Microsoft's kind of effect on that. So what are your thoughts on Microsoft's like how they're showing up for the frontline employees and organizations?
Well, I think Microsoft 365 continues to be more and more exciting for those kinds of scenarios. And I think that there's bigger and bigger reasons as time goes on to think about how do we combine all of our efforts together the place that you most likely do it is Teams. There's a lot of capability within Teams to think about those categories of employees, whether you think about messaging, whether you think about walkie-talkie communication functionality in Teams, whether you think about apps within Teams like Shifts that make it really easy to schedule frontline employees, and to outline what they're supposed to be doing on the shifts that they're working on. There's so many tools there, but in the background, there's also this imperative to how do we connect together all of our data going forward to the benefit that AI is going to bring as time goes on. So I think that Microsoft 365 is a very exciting proposition. There are specific licenses to be purchased for frontline staff that don't need access to all the Office apps, for example. And I think increasingly my recommendation to a lot of businesses when I talk about this is to think about this. You know, you may have historically had a group of people in your office who are the people who are working with the Office apps, and then you have everyone else that either doesn't touch a computer or a digital device or is on some other platform. And increasingly bringing that all together under one umbrella makes a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah. So in some cases, you will hear me not singing Microsoft's praises when it comes to our frontline employees. In other cases, you will. But I think it's important to note the future. You know what I mean? You were talking about Teams. If you think about what Teams looked like what was Teams when it first came out, right? And what was it doing? First of all, it was kind of like pushed really, really hard during COVID because it just had to be. And then it started to settle down, and then they just started to make their updates. If you consider what Teams was a few years ago and what it is now, you can get kind of like a glimpse into the future. But speed it up a little bit because now they've incorporated Copilot, and Copilot is also going to grow and get better. This, to me, is my favorite place to be when it comes to showing people something cool, because they're on a phone. We got to be mobile first, right? So if I go to this construction site and I say to the safety person who probably has to walk through and do a survey, at one point, I probably would have to say, hey, you got to pull up the application, start typing it in there, take a picture, do whatever. If you consider that process, you can now consider that process faster with you just holding your phone and probably talking to it. You know what I'm saying? And getting some very accurate responses, results, and all of that using your Copilot. The number one thing I've heard really, really good about Copilot is the transcription services when you have a meeting. It says it sums it up really well and gives you the nuance. This person was talking about this, and they thought that we should probably be focused on this. Here are some tasks that came out of the meeting. Like a really well done note taker.
Oh, yeah. Right? Well, I've told you that I use that just for myself, right? Have I talked to you about this before?
I believe so. I can't remember.
So I like that use case. Like, I'll set up a meeting just with myself. And I'll talk.
Oh, yeah.
I could be in the car and I could just talk to Teams about the meeting that I've just attended or an upcoming idea for a video or whatever it might be. And you get this transcript, you get a summary. You can now ask questions of it with Copilot. Copilot can see all of that. Like, I think you're right. This is I've been using this since Teams Premium came out, but with Copilot, it's even more powerful.
So imagine now that safety person walking the site and just talking to the phone. They pick up the phone.
Yep.
They're using the transcription. All right, I was on level A. I just saw this. Blah blah blah. Whatever. Now you've done all of that. Now let's say maybe you have a desk at headquarters, or maybe you work remote. When you go back, you pull up your notes and start talking to it again. All right, what insights can you find from what I found? Or give me some questions that I need to ask about this. Maybe you're an independent safety person and you're doing an audit, whatever. Frontline employees. The reason why I talked about Teams then, Teams now, is because Microsoft then, Microsoft now, and think about Microsoft in the future. Microsoft now versus Microsoft in the future for our frontline employees are going to be, It's gonna be crazy. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be just think of all the possibilities. We talk about construction, but maybe teachers. You know what I'm saying? Teachers having meetings with their students, one-on-ones, or independent folks. You know, your entrepreneurs and what they're doing, and they have to go on site. What I did the other day when I went on site with my client, and if they allowed me to, you know, keep getting the audio of that, and then just mining through that in a matter of minutes afterwards and providing some type of report, all of that. Mm-hmm. Like working in the field is going to become so much more efficient. I love it.
Oh, I agree with you. Have you seen the videos of like it's almost like the kind of Iron Man, like AR visualization of you've got this like device in front of you and this is how you take it apart and working with Copilot. It's really, I mean, none of this exists in the way that it's being shown yet, but the ideas for how Copilot is going to integrate with like field service operations and so on and so it's mind-blowing. It's science fiction compared to where we were just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm excited. It's gonna be a good time. Listen, before we get out of here, Nick, what you got? Where can people find you? What you working on that's hot? All that good stuff.
Come and take a look at my my LinkedIn. You're here on YouTube, so you're already seeing the videos here. And some exciting stuff coming up on my website. My new AI course is live. This is for people involved in leading small and medium-sized businesses, just to give a bit of a primer on AI, what it's all about and how you might plan for it. And there's some other deeper training opportunities as well if you're interested in those over there. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in what we've been talking about and you want to find out more about how AI can integrate into your business, go take a look.
Good deal. Yeah, and LinkedIn is my spot too. I'm on there every single day. If you message me, I will get back to you. And if you go to my profile, then I hold workshops. I do workshops all the time. So if you go to my profile, you'll see a link to the latest workshop. Come join, come learn about SharePoint, level up your career, or maybe you might want to get down with SharePoint and be a SharePoint SME. You know what I'm saying? It's all good. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn every day. Just find me. Link will be in the show notes. All right, good deal. Great. All right, Nick, I'll see you next time. Those watching, we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Bye.